All of these pieces are pulled from the wonderful textbook Gardner's Art Through the Ages, 15th edition.
And I'm going to imitate some of those artworks.
I'm Aaron, and this is my art history final project. The first work I decided to recreate was the statuettes of two worshippers. These votive statuettes from Eshnunna are small figures designed to represent worshippers who stood in constant prayer inside a temple. Their most striking feature is the oversized inlaid eyes, meant to symbolize an unbroken eternal gaze towards the divine. Their clear, rigid frontality and clasped hands communicate humility, obedience, and continuous devotion. In my recreation, I tried to capture both the formal qualities and symbolic meaning. I used a plain, neutral backdrop to echo the statue's clean, uncluttered presentation, and I wrapped a blanket around myself to mimic the heavy, patterned wool skirts. I attempted to exaggerate the wide-eyed expression and held my hands tightly at the center of my torso to mirror the statue's gesture. By standing completely frontal and avoiding any sense of movement, my recreation reflects the original figure's role as still, timeless substitutes meant to pray endlessly on behalf of their owners. The goal was to emphasize that Sumerian religious art is less than about realism and more about spiritual presence and rituality. The second piece I recreated was the Menkaure in Khamerernebty. This sculpture is a prime example of the Old Kingdom's royal representation. Menkaure's youthful, idealized body, clenched fists, and forward stride symbolize controlled power and eternal kingship. The strict frontality and perfectly balanced proportions reflect Egyptian values of stability and order. Also, the queen's pose is crucial. Her arms wrap supportively around the king, signaling both partnership and reinforcement of royal authority. The smooth surfaces, lack of deep carving, and compact form are all designed to resist time and communicate permanence. For my recreation, I focused on the physical and symbolic unity of the pair. I adopted the forward striding pose with the left foot advancing, fists at my sides, chest open, and shoulders square to create the same sense of confident stillness. I positioned my brother slightly behind and touching my arm to echo the queen's gesture of legitimacy and support. I wore a tight-fitted shirt to highlight the sleek and toned body of Menkaure and recreated the calm, idealized facial expression without any emotional display to reinforce the Egyptian belief in the ruler as an unchanging divine presence. I also wore a towel to recreate the kilt on my torso. The Dying Gaul is a powerful example of Hellenistic interest in emotional depth and dynamic movement. The figure is shown in the moment between struggle and collapse. His torso twists sharply, his muscles tense, and his head drops as he acknowledges defeat. The detailed depiction of his hair, torque, and facial features marks him as a Gallic warrior, which is important. The Greeks portrayed their enemy with dignity, creating empathy rather than caricature. This sculpture represents pathos, drama, and a deep engagement with human suffering. In recreating this piece, I concentrated on the expressive posture and downward gaze. I arranged my body on the floor in a slumped, asymmetrical position, supporting myself with one arm to suggest fading strength. I emphasized the weight of the torso and the twist of the shoulders to mirror the sculpture's spiraling movement. Kept the background minimal and used a low angle to make the figure appear vulnerable, similar to how the original invites viewers to look down upon the fallen warrior. By recreating the tension in the limbs and the reflective, pained expression, I aimed to match the Hellenistic commitment to realism, emotion, and dramatic storytelling. After Dying Gaul, I did the portrait of Augustus. The Augustus of Primaporta is a masterclass in Roman political portraiture. Augustus is shown in a highly idealized, eternally youthful form influenced by his classical Greek sculpture. His contrapposto stance, raised right arm, and calmed, controlled expression frame him as an orator, military commander, and divinely favored ruler. The original statue's chest plate is covered in a symbolic reliefs linking Augustus' power to cosmic order, diplomacy, and divine ancestry. This linked him to the gods, but also promoted stability to Rome, as his feet also signify his semi-divinity, serving as a figure to admire for all Romans. In my recreation, I adopted the orator's raised arm gesture and balanced posture, shifting my weight naturally to imitate contrapposto. I kept the expression serene and composed to reflect Augustus' carefully crafted image as a rational, God-supported leader. The god represented in the image is Cupid, but in my image it's represented by a nutcracker. The blanket and pipe imitate the cloth and possible spear or baton, and together they invoke the sense of leadership and ceremonial display seen in the original statue. By focusing on gesture, posture, and idealization, my recreation mirrors the sculptural language of Roman authority, where physical perfection and calm control serve as political messaging. Finally, my last recreation will be the Reliquary statue of Sainte Foy. This statue exemplifies a Romanesque fascination with relics and the power associated with them. The seated figure is stiff, frontal, and iconic rather than naturalistic. Her face, originally from an earlier Roman statue, is distinctly mask-like, emphasizing holy presence rather than individuality. The gold surface and embedded gems express both the spiritual value of the saint and the wealth offered by pilgrims. Romanesque art often prioritizes symbolic meaning, and this reliquary shows that clearly. It is meant to radiate sacred authority, not replicate the human body. For my recreation, I only had a yellow shirt, but it doubles as the gold surface. I also focused on the statue's iconic rigidity. I sat completely upright in a central frontal position to imitate the immovable throne-like quality of the original figure. I used my yellow shirt to imitate the reliquary's shimmering surface of gold. I was not able to add any jewels, but I made up for it with my facial expression, being intentionally blank and mask-like, reflecting the Romanesque shift away from the natural human emotion towards the spiritual awe. The overall goal was to highlight how form, posture, and material work together to create a sense of supernatural presence, something the medieval viewer would have experienced as both visually impressive and spiritually powerful. Thanks for watching. I have a headache.